Zig coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have KB Boyce, co-founder and co-director of Queer Rebel Productions. KB performs in XDLEGIT, an Oakland-based sci-fi soul musical and experimental media act. They also perform in Homobiles on drums. And we're here to talk to them about the re-release of Nastyfacts' first EP. Left for Dead Records is reissuing the long out of print, highly collectible sole release of Nastyfacts, Drive My Car. So that's available on Left for Dead Records. You can get the re-release. It's a 3-song single, and it's really, really catchy. KB hasn't stopped playing music, has not stopped playing bass or drums, and it's found themselves in a lot of different projects. As of now, KB is doing a rock opera called The Red Shades. It's a trans superhero rock opera, right? And they found themselves in a lot of cool opportunities to give back to the trans, queer, LGBTQ community. And they continue to do that work. And we get into that in the conversation. We're going to listen to Get to You off Nastyfacts, Drive My Car. Nastyfacts, Get to You, Drive My Car is the EP, re-released on Left for Dead Records. If you go to leftfordeadrecords.com, you get your own copy today. And yeah, this was a really insightful, fun conversation, and I'm excited for you guys to hear it. Before I do that, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on one of the podcast platforms, if you dig what you hear, it helps me keep talking to cool guests and sharing their insight with you. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with KB.
Had a show last night. So.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
How'd it
it's all
go?
good. Oh, it went great. It went great. I'm part of the pit band in a musical that's happening here in the Bay Area. And so this was our second weekend of shows, and it's been going great. It's been going fantastic.
Is that
Yeah.
have you done pit gigs before? It's a different
You know what?
situation, isn't it?
It's a very, very different situation. I have not done this type of work since high school.
Yeah.
I got asked to be in to do the bass for this thing, and it's paying pretty well, and it's a very cool community type of community building event. It's very in your face trans. It's a trans
The Red Shades, right?
superhero. Yeah, rock opera, exactly.
That's so
So
sick.
yeah, it's out of control. It is so good, and people are loving it, and but it's like we have one more week of the run, and it's just very hard to get to sleep afterwards. Everyone's all hyped up, and
Yeah.
good times though. So
That's awesome.
so
Well,
yeah,
let's get into
yeah,
it. I think
yeah,
that's
for sure, for sure.
so the go off like the list I was sending you, and I think that plays off since you haven't done a gig like
Yeah,
that since high school. When did
yeah,
music
yeah.
become your form of expression? What was that like in your family?
Well,
Growing up.
yeah, growing up, I was super blessed. My mom and my dad were musicians, and even though I didn't realize this until I was a teenager and found out because they didn't tell me. My mom had been in my dad's band. My dad had a swing kind of thing. He played piano. He was a band leader. He had a swing band with horns and the whole 9 yards. And my mom was the female vocalist at the front of the stage in a gown type thing. And so I grew up with my mom just constantly singing in the house, and music was just a very natural thing. It was just like that, just part of life.
Yeah.
And I got into, I was just always singing with mom, and my mom tells the story, I tried to build myself a guitar,
Yeah.
like out of a broomstick and a tambourine and some rubber bands or something. And I was like, look, Ma, I made a guitar. She's like, how? And she was like, she went and got me an acoustic guitar because I apparently was into it. But that's when I was really young. And so I guess that's where it all started. And then as far as Nasty Facts, now, Brad and Jeff were the two guys that started that band. and I met them. I think they had been together for a minute when I met them, but let me tell you, they weren't. We weren't called Nastyfacts then. They were called Pandemonium, and it was a
Mm.
cover band.
Huh.
And that's when I met them. They were playing like Kiss songs and like Bowie songs, and like it was a cover band. It was
Yeah.
like just some kids playing covers. I joined up with them, and eventually we started writing our own music, and then the rest kind of happened.
So what was the gap with like getting from a acoustic guitar that your mom got you to a bass?
Yes. Well, let's see. The real story of that is, and this is kind of funny. I had a crush on this young woman that went to my grade school, high school, because I've known all these guys, Brad and Jeff and Genji, since grade school. Not so really young, but Brad and Jeff had another bass player before me, and that kid's older sister was a hottie, and I had a crush on her, and so what? And her boyfriend played bass, and her little brother played bass.
Ah.
Now, what happened was they wound up moving to a new city, and so all of a sudden, Brad and Jeff didn't have a bass player, and I didn't have my crush anymore. We were all just like sad, and I ran into them at school at lunch one day, and they were looking sad, and I was looking sad, and I was like, "What's wrong with you guys?" And they're like, "We don't have a bass player anymore," and I was like, "Oh," and I thought to myself, "Well, I play bass," I said, although I didn't. And I went home. I swear this is true. I went home. I was like, "Mom, what's a bass? I need one. I'm going to be in this band." And my mom, being an amazing woman, the woman she was, she actually, get this, she took me to a pawn shop. We
Yeah.
rescued a bass and a like an amp, a Kalamazoo amp. That was the brand name. Hilarious. I had a
Yeah.
Harmony bass and a Kalamazoo amp, and she talked the pawn shop guy down to like $100 for both, and we took it home, and that's how it all started. And like I said, Pandemonium was a cover band at that moment, so Brad and Jeff were like, "Oh, if you play bass, just learn these songs." And they gave me a copy of like Kiss Alive, the album, the
Yeah.
double album. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
swear to God. And I went home and I learned hella Kiss songs, and I thought I was the shit because I was like, "Wow, I can play all of this," not realizing Kiss is like three chords, right? Come on. So, but it was good for me. It was good for my ego. I was like, "Yeah, I'm really good at this bass thing. This is great." But anyway, that's how it all started with
That's
those
awesome.
guys.
I
It was
think
pretty fun.
Kiss has like they have like a, especially I've talked to someone else about the live album as well, as like someone who learned all their guitar chops from like the licks that Ace Frehley was doing. And there's something about how that
Dude,
music's,
seriously,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, the, the songs are simple, but they're simple and really good. Just so catchy, and so I don't know. You just get into it, and it helps that Kiss Alive, that album being alive performance. I mean, you really feel the energy of it all. And at that age, for me, it just grabbed me. It just pulled me in. I was just like, yes, this is cool. This is what I want to do. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. That's awesome.
yeah.
Like, and I think that's what's so important about bands like that, is that
Hmm.
and they're fun, and like you can get behind a
Exactly.
pentatonic scale because now it's cool. Like,
Right? Yeah, for real. For real.
so okay, so you're playing bass and you're learning these covers. And
Yeah.
did before, like with guitar, were you reading music or anything, or were you just playing that
Not
on your own?
really. I
Okay.
was just kind of, I do pretty much everything on my own. I've self taught everything. Although I did in my really young years at school, they put me in. I think every musician winds up starting playing the recorder. I
Right.
started playing the freaking recorder. No, but seriously, like Baroque music is what they got me. They had me doing Baroque recorder. In fact, the headmaster of my school, wanted me to go to Oberlin to do Baroque recorder when I graduated from high school. And I was like, that's not going to happen, dude. I'm sorry. That's really not going to happen.
Baroque's got
But
that
yeah,
kind of
so
movement too, like that,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely. But that was not where I was at
Right.
18. I mean, Nastyfacts had put out the record, and I was just in a whole different headspace. It was not about Baroque,
Yeah, yeah.
Baroque order. It was not. Yeah, no, not
um, but
beautiful stuff, of course.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's stuff, but that's a later appreciated thing too. Um,
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
Very cool. So like, so what was the first gig? Was it with Pandemonium and was it covers or
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. With Pandemonium, we started. We actually got some. It was something like a monthly during the summer, a monthly gig on where the heck was that? It was out near where the Amityville house was in Long Island. We got this like gig
Yeah.
playing at this kids like a party for the kids on whatever that is, Long Island, Fire Island. I can't remember, so long ago. But we would go out there. One of our parents would drive us out with our gear, and we'd set up at this rec center and play for like these kids out there, probably to get them out of their parents' hair for a night. You know what I mean? But they paid us. That was, I think, one of the first paid serious gigs that was like a recurring gig. And it was all we did covers. It was all covers, right? And eventually we had some friends who, well, kind of friends, they were a little older than us, but they were playing at Max's Kansas City and stuff like that, and we were like, hey, how do you guys play at nightclubs? We want to do that. And they said to us, well, first you've got to learn how to write your own songs. And being little kids, we were
Yeah.
just like, oh, cool, thanks. And we went home and started writing songs. We didn't realize they were totally dissing us, like, you got to learn how to write your own songs, you know. But yeah, we actually did go home and start writing, and then we made a little demo, and it kind of took off from there. You know, we were so young and unaware of how challenging life is. It was just like we just walked into a lot of things. We were in the right place at the right time. At least that's how I feel. I feel
Right.
like I was in the right place at the right time for many things, and so yeah, that's what's up.
So, well, no, that makes sense because with a lot of that, like there's books on how to write songs and you know what I mean, like in a lot so
Right.
much of it is the right people and putting it together and someone else hearing it right when it's available
There
to
you go.
them,
Exactly.
and that's
Exactly.
uncontrollable. Uh,
Exactly. It's completely beyond your out of your hands. And yeah, we like I said, I feel like I was a really, really incredibly lucky kid back then, for many reasons. You know, but yeah, the the the,
just the
the punk rock thing saved
yeah,
my life.
yeah,
I'm just saying, it really did. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah. Well, as a young, out queer, like I knew I was trans, I knew I was queer, I knew a lot of things that I didn't really understand because I was too young to understand what was going on. But I was at that age where, if I walked, and I grew up in Bed-Stuy in
mm,
Brooklyn, right? And if I'm walking around my neighborhood back in those days, uh, I was at that changing point in my life where people are looking at me and they're going, "Are you a boy or are you a girl? What is that? What is?" And then I just started getting a lot of aggro energy as I was in my hood, and but then punk rock happened, and I was all about it. And folks would look at me after that, and look at me walking down the street in Bed-Stuy, and they just go, "Oh no, that one's crazy. Don't even fuck with that. Just leave them alone. And we don't know what that we don't know what that kid's thinking. Just don't mess with." So people stopped messing with me, and
yeah,
for that reason, punk rock saved my life. That alone, but just the energy of it and the excitement and getting to play at Max's Kansas City and CBGB's almost on the monthly, because Hilly and Pete, from those two clubs, really treated us like we were their kids or something. They loved us. They treated us well, and rebooked us all the time.
that's
So it
amazing.
was pretty wild.
Yeah,
And I was like 15, 16. I was the one getting us the gigs and making sure we got paid.
yeah.
And I don't even know where I got that knowledge from. I guess I got it osmosis from my parents, but they never talked about the music
Mm.
So I didn't really learn that business stuff from them. I just somehow knew that that had to happen and did it, you know?
Yeah, it seems like you really had a keen understanding of yourself, especially at that age, and like found like what that's so cool about the punk and the punk scene. It's like it's inclusive. Like you know what I mean? Like everyone's kind of
Yeah,
welcome there
absolutely.
to do their thing, and like
Yeah, yeah.
finding
And
that's so critical at that time.
it really was. I mean, those were different days, though, and you know, although I felt like it saved my life and it really did help me out a lot on a lot of different levels, but still, I was one of the only queer or trans type punks I knew. I was definitely one of the only punks of color that I knew.
Mm,
As even though I felt like the sense of community with the freaks, I felt like a freak among the freaks. So I still felt kind of, you know, out of the loop, but still, it really did help me get through a lot of stuff. And
right.
yeah,
So like
yeah.
well, and I imagine that when we get to talking about queer rebels in the road in this conversation, I imagine that
Oh yeah,
that void is a big part of what queer rebels is trying to like
it
fulfill.
absolutely is. Keen eye, good on you. You know, back then, back in the Nastyfacts days, I remember thinking, man, I wish I could find some other black punks, I found other black kids who were playing rock and playing music that wasn't what was expected of us. Like they weren't in funk bands, they weren't in jazz band, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, kind of those few handful of black folks, we knew each other because we were the freaks. We were like not we were doing something that most folks were not doing back then, especially. And so I became a part of the Black Rock Coalition, and Vernon Reed was a big part of you know, just having having people around who kind of understood where I was coming from, although none of them were queer or trans or anything like that. But yeah, it was a challenge. It was challenging to do what I was trying to do, but again, I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, I got so much out of being in that scene, you know, and I learned so much about everything, life, music, you know, uh, everything. It's a lot. It was a long time ago, though. It was a really long time ago. So it's kind of funny to me to be talking about those days, you know.
It is
Yeah,
it's weird to like look back on anything and to think about
sure.
how profound it is because when you're doing it, it's just happening. You know,
Absolutely. You're just right there in the middle of it. You're not thinking about it, you know.
but those are
Yeah.
so defining down the line. So like, what other
hmm
bands were you guys playing with? Was like Nasty
Uh,
Facts
we
playing with?
Well, yeah, we were playing with a lot of times club owners would try to book us with either bands that had someone else of color or bands that had some younger folks. So we played with ESG. We played with the Stimulators a lot because Harley, you know, Harley, who is right now Cro-Mags, was their drummer back in the day. And he was like 11 years old. And we were like, you know, between 12 and 16 years old. So we played with the Stims a lot. We opened for the Bad Brains, and that changed my
Wow.
life.
Yeah.
Just watching the Bad Brains do their thing when we were just starting to play clubs, and we got that gig, and yeah,
Yeah.
that changed my life big, big, big time. I just love the Bad Brains. Love the Bad Brains. Super inspiring. I mean, they're so good. They were
Right.
so tight, you know.
Oh wow.
So they're
To
yeah,
be in front
yeah.
of that band, holy cow.
Yeah, yeah. When you're a little kid,
Yeah.
you know, getting to open for them was wild. It was wild. Yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
Like I
Um,
said, we were in the right place at the right time. Very lucky kids. Very, very, very lucky kids. And I'm aware of it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I'm super aware that I was lucky as hell.
That's so cool.
You know? Yeah, it's wild.
Did you interact with the guys from Bad Brains at all during that show, or was it kind of just like they play?
It was a
Holy cow!
it was a really quick, yeah, exactly. It was a really quick night. You know, we were just the opening act, so
Yeah,
no, we didn't really. But later in life, I actually went on a short tour with a different band opening for the Bad Brains.
Yeah.
For like Midwest. It was like a Midwest tour. I think we got as far as maybe Chicago or something like that, and then back to the East Coast. But yeah, the Bad Brains have always been a big part of my coming up. I just
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
so cool. What band was that?
Oh, that was a band called. It wasn't my band. I was sitting in for a bassist who had gotten pregnant. It was a band called Scab, and they were out of New York. Yeah, and yeah. So and that was also with the Adolescents, the California
Yeah.
band. I think. Yeah, yeah. So it was Scab, Adolescents, and Bad Brains.
That's a banging lineup.
Pretty funny tour. It's kind of messy,
Yeah,
a
well,
little
I
messy, but
imagine, but
yeah,
like
yeah.
what a and also the luck out on bass because everyone needs a bass player, you know?
I was just talking about that last night. I was just talking about that. Like, if you're a good bassist, you can get work. Everybody plays guitar,
Right.
but a good bass player, a good drummer, and those are the gigs I get the most right now. I also play drums and I play
Yeah.
guitar, but I'm playing drums for a band called the Homobiles right now. I'm playing bass with the Red Shades and a couple of other groups who've had folks who couldn't do a tour or couldn't do whatever. And if I dig the music and the pay's right, I'm in. So I get hired to do extra things here and there, and it's side hustles. But
Right, right.
my main gig right now is Queer Rebels, is my production company, and that's what I gotten sidetracked. When I was a kid, I remember thinking, I wish there was a way to meet other folks of color doing this type of music, and I wanted to start my own production company. As a teenager, I'm thinking about production companies, right?
Yeah.
Weird, but true. And here I am now. And in 2008, I started with my ex-wife, Queer Rebel Productions, and we are, in fact, that production company I always wanted when I was a kid. So I'm living the dream. It's
That's
pretty wild.
that's that like do it yourself attitude and like I
Absolutely.
think that
Again,
yeah,
punk rock saved my
right.
life. It's so many levels. Yeah, it's helped me to keep the attitude that I can do what I need to do, even though other folks might not understand what I'm doing. And that's not my problem. I need to do what I have to do. And that's something I got from punk rock. It's like, I got to do this because this is me. This is what I need. Screw you. you know,
Right, right.
I
Well,
don't care what you think I'm supposed to be. I'm going to do this.
that's
So,
incredibly important though. And like
yep,
that's
exactly.
not an easy
Exactly.
mentality to get.
No, and like I said, we were really lucky because we were just at that age, that point in your life where you're so intense about everything, and that's when punk rock popped up, and I was just like all
Yeah.
about it, like intensely about it, and intensely about playing bass, and yeah, pretty
So
wild.
so when did you pick up drums?
It's around the same time I started playing
Yeah.
bass. The thing was, because we rehearsed at Genji, at the drummer's, Nastyfacts drummer Genji's parents let us practice in their basement. So all of our gear was there, set up. So if we weren't playing together, I would be like, "Hey Genji, can I hit your drums for a minute?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So I would play the drums, and like I had a guitar at home, so I play. I wrote the Nastyfacts songs on an acoustic guitar at home, and would bring them in and play them on bass for the guys. But I just started, like I said, I'm self-taught. I just, any chance I would get to sit on somebody's instrument, I would do it, and that's the rest is history, as they say. I just love music, and I'm very blessed and lucky that I come from my mom and pop who were super talented folk. So yeah, I'm pretty lucky that I was able to just pick up stuff and teach myself to
Right.
work it out.
Well, and
But yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say for a lot of people, it's so hard to do something, mess it up, and be like, oh, I just gotta do this and keep doing that to get it right. To have that
Right,
auto
right,
correction and that determination that I
right,
can get it.
right. Well, something that was helpful in that regard. Like I didn't worry too much about being perfect at anything because punk rock.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like the freedom. That's what got me. It's like this amount of freedom that is a possibility as being a punk rocker, especially back in 1978, 79, when punk was like nobody knew what the fuck that was. No one knew what this was. They just thought we were all crazy.
Yeah.
It was literally a different world back then. It was really different. And so for me, it was a pride thing to be able to just like stand up, just be myself. Like I also I was an intense kid where I was like, I don't understand why these performers and TV actors or movie stars who you can look at them and see they're gay, but they won't come out because
Right.
then people are going to say they're gay. I'm like, well, if you come out, you're saying you're gay. So
Right.
who cares what other people say? And just didn't understand. It was so frustrating to me. I just wanted to be out and about and do my thing. And I was a little kid, so I didn't get that there's so much to keep us down and keep us from feeling that freedom and that power.
Yeah.
But I was determined and stubborn like my mama. So I was just gonna do what I was gonna do, and here I am, still doing it.
That's amazing though, and like, then to jump into this production company and to keep growing in these different avenues, and I'm sure along the way of just you being you, there's people around you that opened up and became themselves because of what you've done.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I've had some amazing success stories come out of Queer Rebel Productions. Like we have performers who worked with us when they were just beginning, and now they're like in New York doing the thing. They're on, NPR or whatever. They're on all kinds of. They're just doing it, and I'm super proud. And I'm just here to support the youth. Really, Queer Rebels is an intergenerational arts organization, so it's all about getting folks who are emerging artists and folks who have been doing it for a while and creating a space for them to work together because we can learn from each other. We really all got to learn from one another. And so that's kind of where Queer Rebels is at. We do live events. I now have a residency program. I'm trying
Yeah.
to teach younger folks about the art world and about getting grants to fund what it is that you want to do and how to pull together and produce events, shows, all of the things, all the things. So now we have a residency program that's been happening. It's 3 years long at this point. We've been doing it for 3 years, and like I said, Queer Rebels has been around since 2008 now, and it's my main. It's my like if I would have a full-time job, it is Queer Rebels, and then everything else is the side hustles.
Yeah.
And the music is it's just my love. I love to play. So there you go. Like I said, I'm living the dream. I'm
Yeah.
pretty lucky and blessed. Yeah, yeah.
It's incredible. It's and that course you just described is so important. I work at a nonprofit art gallery in Cleveland, and
Uh-huh.
the grants, the putting together the events,
Right,
that's all
right.
stuff that's so important to learn.
It's
And
super important. Yes, yes.
so that's so cool that you can. And one thing that I really admire about Queer Rebels is how um, intergenerational, because there's a lot of like stuff that doesn't include like kids coming up or people that have
Right,
already made it. So to have that
right.
that's super important and like super beneficial. Like,
I agree. I agree.
and
Super.
I'm sure that was like kind of a goal from the beginning. But was there a point where that became like, or was that always kind of part of the goal from the beginning, is to have this intergenerational
It,
approach,
it,
or did
it
that?
was it
Yeah.
was part of the goal. I started Queer Rebels with my ex-wife, who was 17 years younger than me. Okay,
Mm,
so
okay.
we were intergenerational. She was also Asian, and I'm black, so we had that going for us, and we were very much aware of these differences in the way that society views the like relationships between Asians and African Americans and older queers and younger queers, and we just wanted to create a space that made it clear that this is community. It's that we shouldn't be making these walls. This is community. We all need to work together. It's like if the man, he don't want none of us to make it. So it's better in numbers. We need to be working together to go forward. And so that's where Queer Rebels came from. Basically, it was our baby.
That's
So
beautiful.
yeah.
Um, One thing I wanted to ask, when you were picking up on the drums and playing
Uh-huh.
bass, did that kind of help like write certain ways or play certain ways on the bass, playing a little bit on the
Um,
kit and seeing how that fit?
yeah, it probably did. I can definitely say, like, I don't know if I thought about that, but I can definitely say that my bass playing was influenced by drummers. I listened to drums intensely when I was coming up. I always gravitated, like when I'd go to shows, I'd be there watching the drummer for some reason, not the bass player, but the drummer. And my bass parts were inspired by drummers like Bonham. I just his drumming totally. I loved playing bass along to Bonham's drumming,
Mm.
like listening to Zeppelin. I don't know. There's something about certain drummers that inspired my bass playing. And on top of that, I do enjoy. I really, really love drumming myself.
And you're a
So
really
I don't
good
know. It's all
drummer.
connected.
I listened to everything I could find homobiles and like
You know what? The only thing I joined the Homobiles a couple of years ago,
okay.
right before the pandemic. So
Yeah.
there's only one recording of me on drums. Their old drummer, absolutely great, great drummer, but we're very different, and we're right now trying to get some of the new material because I've started writing songs with Homobiles as well. We're trying to get into the studio as soon as we can all get some time to make that happen.
Well,
So
either way,
yeah,
I
I'm
listened
stoked.
to all of it and like all of it that's on Bandcamp. So from the latest one to the last one, and it's all dope. And the
Right,
drumming's
right
solid.
on. Well, thanks. Yeah,
Um,
thanks. Yeah,
so
appreciate that.
like with writing, do you typically write on guitar and then like how you're saying, bring it to bass and bring it to the band?
It depends, but for the most part, yeah, it's usually on my guitar. The Nastyfacts songs. I got a funny story. I wrote all three of the songs on that EP on an acoustic guitar that had three strings
Huh.
because I had
Yeah.
I had top strings. I hadn't bothered to put them back on, and I was just sitting around at home with this like piece of an acoustic guitar, and that's where those songs came from.
And they're all
So,
so catchy. Those are three really good songs.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, I'm very lucky and blessed. Very lucky and blessed. And,
Well,
yeah,
that's
I,
also time. You put in time and that's what comes out. Like
yeah. There you go.
so
True that.
when so the single was getting picked up on BBC while you guys were still playing, like were you aware of that?
You know what? I was not aware of that until I saw it in your email. I was like, "What? What is these? What?" And in fact, here's the funny thing: I didn't realize that Nasty Facts had a shelf life until I think it was my 40th birthday. I was working at some club,
Yeah.
and my coworker said, "Hey, what were you doing?" I was sitting around, and it was my birthday, so we were doing shots. Hey, and they're like, "What?" They're talking about what they did when they were kids, and like, "Hey, what were you doing when you were a teenager?" And I was like, well, and I just kind of went to a laptop and I typed in Nasty Facts, which I had never done before, and pages and pages of shit came up, and I was like, oh, that was me. That's what I was doing. And that's when I found out that we still had a shelf life. I had no idea.
Yeah.
It had been years and years, decades, and I had no clue. I had just been trying to move on and live my life, do what I had to do. I hadn't thought about Nasty Facts in a long time. And now here, all of a sudden, here, all of this is happening, and it's kind of cracking me up. Like, you know, it's
Well,
bizarre.
I think that goes to show if you do something and it has all the passion and focus and effort into it, people pick up on that even when you move on from that, you know?
Right, right. It's a
So
beautiful thing.
like when you
Wild.
hear it now, is it like is
Mm.
it how how is that experience listening to little you, and like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I'm very proud of what we did, and it's a little weird to hear my voice back then because
yeah,
I sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. But other than that, I'm really proud of it. I also spent some time teaching at something called Girls Rock Camp out here in the Bay Area, and that is a group of folks that teach young kids about music, and we put them together and they'd form their little bands. By the end of the summer camp a program, which is only a couple of weeks long, we will have had them create a band, get a band name, a logo, they write a couple of songs, and then we at the end they perform for their peers at a club here in the East Bay that would let us do a daytime show with underage kids performing on stage with a real sound system and all that. So I'm very proud of Nastyfacts, and I would actually play Nastyfacts for the kids because they were about the age that we were with Nastyfacts, just to show them, yo, I was your age and this is us. You can do this, you know. So I'm very proud of Nastyfacts. Very proud of that stuff. It still sounds good to me,
it
you
sounds
know.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, it still
Um,
sounds good to me.
and that's well, what a cool way to utilize that in that setting, because like, I
Yeah,
teach too. I think I said through the emails, and like, it's I feel kids now are so like kind of aware of everything they say and do, and I think that's good.
yeah,
And like, but it's
right.
also like it makes a lot more anxiety and a lot more like, you know,
Yes, yes, yes. I do know. I'm seeing it in the youth for sure. You know.
yeah,
But Girls Rock Camp is a really amazing way to kind of cut through and just like give kids drumsticks and guitars and amps and go, hey, turn up. They're like, no, this is too loud. No, 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 turn it up, really, turn it up. It's okay. Make noise. Be free. You know.
that's awesome. It is, and it takes that being fun and not worrying about it. It takes that punk
Yeah.
ethos that like
Yeah.
trip into younger, and like to bring that out later and be okay with it. That's so like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so critical. Um,
Okay. Yep.
very cool.
Again, punk rock saved my life because I was at that impressionable age when I got into it. When it happened, when punk happened, I was at that age, and I was stubborn enough that I've never lost that feeling, that ethos. I've always been just gonna do what I'm gonna do, and I really don't care what y'all think. And I know I'm a side female at birth, black person, and I'm supposed to be a whatever librarian or a nurse or a teacher, and that's fine. I am a teacher in my own way, but I'm not gonna be what y'all are telling me I'm supposed to be because fuck you. I'm a
Yeah,
punk.
yeah.
And yeah, right. So I mean, I'm really lucky and blessed
That's beautiful,
that
and
that was that
just
for me.
that is so important for people to hear and see, so they can do it themselves. And that's the that
Right.
beautiful part of what
Absolutely.
you do, and beautiful part of what punk rock does, and beautiful part of what art does.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So
I,
about,
I, I yeah, yeah,
sorry, I was
yeah.
gonna ask. I wanted to touch on the musical because we touched on it at the very beginning. So,
Right, right,
the Red Shades, you're in the pit, and like
right.
that's a completely different style of gig because you're
It
supporting what's going on
certainly is.
above you. But how did that come out of queer rebels, or people being aware of queer rebels and reaching out to you, or how did
Um,
that come about?
yeah, the funny thing is that the director of the Red Shades was a queer rebel artist way back. Has performed with queer rebels, but that's not how I got the gig. I got the gig because of the Homobiles. The guitarist in the Homobiles is also in the Red Shades, and they were a theater person straight up, like for part of their adult life. They were into that kind of thing, and so they have those connections, like that I don't have. Like I said, I hadn't done anything like this since high school, right? I've been a working musician all my life, but I went from Nastyfacts to feeling like punk rock had died by 1980 or so. It was like kind of over back then. And I, having been spoiled by Nastyfacts, I did not want to work. I wanted to work as a musician, and so I formulated a way to become a session player, and I would pretty much work for anybody who needed a good bassist in the studio or live or whatever, anything to keep from having to like flip burgers, you know. So that's I kind of I went the path of playing in clubs, playing on tours, doing that kind of thing, and not thinking about musical theater at all. It was like the last thing on my mind. But this production being such a community-minded, amazing piece of queer and trans history, kind of remade into this really catchy, snazzy, snappy musical, I had to be part of it. I just thought, yeah, I'll play bass for that, sure, you know. That sounds great. I'm into it, you know. And the music is good. It's not, you know, it's like a modern trans rocky horror. It's really fun. It's a lot of fun to play the songs. Matt Gandhi, I believe is his last name, co-wrote the music with Adrian Price, who is the author of the entire thing, The Red Shades. But anyway, the plot is great. The music is great. The performers they've got are amazing. And I feel blessed again to be a part of it, you know. Really special production. It's very special.
That's so cool. Like when you sent me the bit on in the email, and it was like a
Mm,
trans superhero rock opera. I was like, holy shit,
right.
that sounds
Like, what
amazing.
the fuck? Yeah,
That
yeah.
sounds so cool.
It's dope. It's dope for sure.
So like the
Yeah.
kind of pick on some of those session like oriented years, diving into that. Was
Yeah.
that like mostly recording or live sessions that you were doing?
Both.
Yeah.
I pretty much worked all the time. I mean, I would get calls at 2 a.m. Yo, can you get to the studio? We'll pay for a cab. Just come down. I'm like, okay, I'm down. You know, because like I said, I didn't want to be flipping burgers. I'd
Right.
rather be up all night playing music. And New York, you can do that, you know.
Got it. And was it one central studio that you really
No,
locked in?
no,
No?
no, no, no. It was just me getting my name out there. Me saying, you know, and people knowing about Nastyfacts helped for sure. You know, definitely helped.
So ultimately,
Yeah.
we didn't really touch what kind of wrapped up nasty facts. What kind of ended that where everyone moved
Well,
on?
I went off to college. I mean, we were still kind of together ish when I was in college. We actually played a show at my college, but that was probably one of, if not the last gig we did together. Basically, we all kind of grew up, you know, and moved on. And, yeah, and I left New York, you know, so that all it all kind of just ran its course, I guess. You know, we were a kid band, we were kids, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden we were adults, and it was like, you know, life gets in the way, and we moved on. You
You
know,
know, that's interesting because like a lot of bands that do kind of start like that, like with when
right?
kind of have
As
that
kids,
right, have that disperse
right,
where
friends.
like if adults kind of do it, they kind of go into the band. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a different
Mm.
point as opposed
Yes,
to kids going band out to life. It's like adults
right.
go
Yeah,
life
yeah.
into band. Like
Yeah, yeah, no, we were lucky kids. We were very lucky kids, and being able to practice in the basement of the drummer's house and have our gear just set up and ready to go, and being, you know, the parents were so cool. I mean, they were just happy we weren't out in the streets of New York getting in trouble, right? We were just in the basement smoking weed and shit. But boy, whatever. They were cool. They were very cool about it, you know.
was it? And well, and just like you know, it's all like you're saying, it is all luck. But you put the time in, and you weren't doing anything else. You were in the basement, you know, and that
Yeah,
it's
basically,
deserved and
in the
earned.
summertime, seriously, every day we practiced every day. We didn't really have a life. We just practiced, and we'd come out, take a break, go outside, and there'd be kids from the neighborhood all hanging out on the stoop listening to us. You know, and it was wild. It
Yeah.
was
Was it? Well, KB, I really appreciate your time. I have one more question.
wild.
So with Queer Rebels, what are some of future goals you guys are working at?
Well, we every year there's a thing in the Bay Area called the National Queer Arts Festival, and that's been going on, I don't know, 17 years or something crazy. But Queer Rebels has a part in that. Every summer we do a Queer Rebel Fest, and until Corona, we were doing it live at this beautiful theater in the African American Art and Culture Complex in San Francisco. Um, and now we've been doing our fest online, and that's okay. But I can't wait to get back to the theater and being able to, have that space where youth and elders can hang out together backstage and form new collaborations, and it's pretty amazing to do. But with Queer Rebels, what we're doing is we do our fest every year. Throughout the year, we do other events that are either spoken word or we do literary events. Sometimes we do film screenings for experimental films, all queer and trans artists of color made works. So that's where we're at. We're going to continue to grow. Our residency program has been a huge success, and that's going strong. We're always trying to get funding to continue our work, and it's going pretty well. It's been going well since 2008, and we're not giving up anytime soon. We're just going to keep doing it. And like I said, with the residency, it's teaching folks how to run a business like this, because I'm hoping that I'll find someone who can take my place when I'm not doing the artistic director thing anymore, when I decide I don't want to do it or whatever. I don't want it to end. I would love for Queer Rebels to continue. So that's our goals, is to just keep growing and keep it strong, keep it happening, and be there for our community. We're a community building organization, and that's where we're at. That's what I think about, is how to make it stronger, especially in these times where the right wing is trying to like demonize us like we're monsters, and it's like, come on, man, we just trying to do our thing. We just humans. We just want to live like you. Come on.
Exactly, and that's the
So
most important
yeah,
part.
yeah.
But I think without a doubt, what you're doing is going to continue and grow, and
Thank you.
that's I'm very like keep doing the work you're doing. That's amazing.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
I have one question, and this might I should, but what would
Let's
be the
see.
best advice from someone who is much younger that you've learned, and then someone who is much older?
What's that? It is a deep question. Well, from elder artists, I've learned that really age does not matter. It's like I've seen performers in their 70s and 80s get up on stage and tear it the fuck up and look like a kid again. They look like kids again because they're enjoying what they do so much. And that, how in our society it's like 21 and you're done, you're
Yeah,
old,
yeah.
and seeing older folks doing the thing taught me to not stress about getting older, and to that music keeps you young and keeps you happy, and I will never stop playing music no matter what. Until I cannot play anymore, I will be playing music. So I learned that from watching older folks. And with the younger folk, what have I learned? I've learned a lot. I mean, definitely that, you know, just that wonder, that you have when you're a kid, and that like everything is so like, wow, I didn't know about that. And oh my God, keeping that, trying to keep that in my spirit, trying to stay excited about new things. And, I'm also an audio engineer, so I've over the years just tried to keep up on technology, and just stay ahead of the curve, because I've seen older folks not be able to use a computer or a cell
Yeah,
phone
yeah.
or whatever. And I'm like, oh hell no, that's never going to happen to me. So I try to stay up on the newest things, and so being able to have the community that I have, which consists of younger folks and older folks, I get input from both sides, and that I learn a lot from both sides. All the time. I'm always learning something new.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
and I think that's important. It's important to always to learn something new every day. I really try to do that.
Right. And just be open for that. And I think that was very well
Exactly.
said. I think that was very well said.
Exactly.
KB, thank you so much for
Thank you.
your time. I super appreciate this, and this was a fun chat.
Thank you. I enjoyed the chat as well.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig at the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.